something I probably should have talked about a long time ago, and that is basically how I write jokes for stand-up comedy and structure and stuff like that. There is a number of different ways to do it. Hello, welcome back to Al Talks. This podcast I started 3 years ago to chronicle me starting stand-up. This podcast is a weekly podcast. It comes out once a week, and this is just a small little introduction video into the podcast. So down below in the description of each episode, you can go to my Linktree and find links to everything connected to me. This podcast is available on YouTube, which you're watching it on right now, and also on Spotify. But yeah, that is just a small introduction into this podcast and everything that goes along with it. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Al Talks. This episode, I'm going to be talking about something I probably should have talked about a long time ago, and that is basically how I write jokes for stand-up comedy and structure and stuff like that. There is a number of different ways to do it, and I will go through the way I do it and tell you the reason for it. Now, a lot of people, I suppose I'll start how I used to do it. So I used to write, in the first couple of open mics that I did, I never actually wrote any material down. It was everything was just stored up here in the old analog memory. And it had mixed results. If you listen to the first 5 episodes where I talk about how my first 5 open mics went, it was kind of mixed results. And so over the years, it's gotten a bit different. I used to write everything on like small pieces of paper, all the jokes I want to do that day, and then kind of have that in my back pocket and kind of look at it if I needed guidance. Some people write in their hand, but I don't do that anymore. I still have a couple of receipts there. Yeah, that's why I used to do it. I used to write like old receipts and stuff. And again with the end. So that was kind of the way I used to do it. I write everything out by hand. I have like notepads that I used for writing jokes and stuff. Some people type it out on computer and stuff. I don't like. I prefer like the old school way of writing it out, because then you kind of memorize it a bit better, because you don't, I suppose you can still remember. So it works different for different people, but that's just the way I kind of do it nowadays. Like I said, don't go put the receipts anymore. Try and kind of, because what I do is, instead of what I've done to replace the receipts, is I'll sit down and I will go through the material to basically flip through the couple of pages where I write jokes, because I'll write like a small structured kind of, for example, I'll write a couple of jokes in a row. I'll sit down and write a couple of jokes in a row. That's the ones I usually do at the open mic. So it kind of helps that in the last 3 or 4 pages, that's the kind of material I'm doing. Sometimes I'll go back and restructure jokes and stuff like that. It's very important to restructure jokes that don't work, because they might work in a different audience with a different kind of viewpoint and things like that. And so it'll be, it will be kind of, okay, sorry for the little interruption, but yeah, so like I was saying, so that's, yeah, so I'll go back and reword. That's why it's important to do comedy in front of different audiences, and so it's just to get a different viewpoint, because there are some jokes that are very general and will work all the time, but that's not always the case. And going to different geographical locations can be different, because, like, for example, I have jokes. Some certain jokes are location based, but I can change them around depending where I am location wise. So, for example, it's to do with like me not looking like the local populace in a certain area, but that could just be, you can pick the next town over from where you're performing. So it's just kind of a switch around thing. It's something that I learned from. They would say that comedians from the US would come over and they'd mention like US shops and stuff like, and people in Europe are like, oh, we don't get the joke because we don't have that shop. So I didn't kind of want to fall into that trap by not having my material be relatable. So it just can reach a wider audience and point like that. And then the other thing is, yeah, but that's kind of the process that goes in. And in terms actually of writing the material itself, sometimes things just happen to me in life that are funny. And there's plenty of jokes that I've written about that are just things that have happened to me in actual, in my everyday today life, whether it be from work or from just, walking around doing things, there is, in some of the places I visit, there's quite entertaining local populace that are just, some of it's crazy, some of it's weird, some of it's strange, and you just see things you wouldn't really see anywhere else. And like, and then talking about growing up, because I've lived in a couple of different places over my few years, and what else did I want to say? Yeah, it's just I've lived in different places in Russia, and then I lived in like the one place in Ireland, but I've just I've been around different places, so just kind of experiences from that, and just growing up in different areas and countries and things like that. And what other thing I want to talk about? I think just trying to think if I kind of covered everything. So at the start, never wrote anything down. It was always all up in my head from memory, which had mixed results. Then I started writing stuff down, then having kind of a piece of paper as a backup. To bring back to like certain comedians writing their hand as an aid. And it's when starting off, it's a good idea, but also a bad idea because you become kind of reliant on that. And you can fall into the trap where you basically, especially if people actually write out actual physical jokes, not physical jokes, but like actual jokes out. You can kind of feel like you're reciting stuff rather than just saying it. So you want to be careful. I don't know why I'm saying you want to be careful. This isn't like a tutorial. This is just, I suppose, me just telling people how I write material. And like I've said, I'm in the process of writing my first solo show, and then kind of writing two at the same time, but then going back and forth between the two of them. And hopefully in the next couple of years we shall see how we get on. Try and do like work in progress shows soon, depending on how well things are working out. I also need to restructure. Like I have 2 pads worth of material that I kind of need to actually sit down and write what goes in where and stuff like that. So that'll be work for me for the next couple of years, because it will be years. I want to do this very well and to the best of my ability. And I think that was gonna just wrap this episode up. Hope you enjoyed the small little insight on how I write jokes and stuff. And then as well, like I said, from a lot of my materials from experiences and things like that. And also I do come up with just things I think to me would be funny, and then I tell the audience. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, because sometimes they don't find it funny. But like I said, if you go to different geographical locations and things like that, and try it on different audience members, you can see differences. So what did I want to say? I think that's it really in terms of what I want to say. Not much to it. I would sing a song lyric there, but I get in trouble on YouTube and I have to pay royalties, which I don't want to. So that's it really. That is the episode. I hope you enjoyed it. As per usual, links down below to other funny people's podcasts. check them out if you enjoyed this podcast, and support other comedians and make each other rise up through the glory of the internet, or whatever you want to call it. I don't know. So that is that, I suppose. Yeah, thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and I'll see you all next week. Bye bye.